What do the following images cause on you? Nostalgia? Sadness? Maybe even fear? Do you feel calm? Do you feel like something's off? What you're looking at right now, they're called liminal spaces. The term liminal spaces refers to a transitional place or state, such as a doorway or a big empty hallway, that can be physical, psychological, or metaphorical.
David, that is my name. David, I want another. David, where is my ball? I'm running out on the road. There is a car. And he's going.
Hello, chat. How are we feeling today? Terrible? Me too. So if my voice sounds weird throughout the video, it's because I'm sick. I just love being sick. But now in all seriousness, yes, I'm a bit sick, so if there are some things that sound a little bit weird during the video, it's because I'm sick. Now getting back into the topic. What are liminal spaces? Liminal spaces are spaces in between. Places where you've been, were going, or are going physically, mentally, or emotionally. They are the state of being somewhere but not being fully there yet. And like I mentioned before, it may be a doorway, an empty hallway, or that kind of stuff. That's sort of like the concept, and it's a pretty simple concept. But in reality, the concept of liminal spaces goes way deeper than that. Like for example, liminal spaces have a lot of things in common. That's why most of them cause similar feelings in the audience. But what are liminal spaces characterized by? For example, visiting a big mall that's always full of people, for example, the most popular mall of your city, town, or whatever you live at, compared to the feeling you get when you're getting close, I don't know, to a park, to a kid's park, and all that kind of stuff, they don't feel so similar, right? But the real question is, why does seeing the sort of like liminal version of these two feel so similar? Liminal spaces are characterized by the absence of people. Places designed by the humans are meant to be full of people. They're meant to be joyful, filled with people roaming and wandering. They're meant to feel alive. Liminal spaces, on the other hand, they don't give off that feeling. They're empty, dead. They don't have that purpose of being filled with life. The empty feeling of liminal spaces usually comes from the lack of people. For example, a playground that's meant to be full with children playing and going around. It's now empty. They all went home. A very popular example could be when you're exploring a place, I don't know, when you're at a mall, but it's getting close to closing time. Let's put an example. This mall closes at 11 p.m. and you went there at 5 p.m. The feeling between these two different hours, for example, you're at a cinema, and when you go out of the cinema, it's already past the closing time on this mall. As I just mentioned, the mall closes at 11, and you went out, I don't know, at 12 a.m. Closing time in places are the best example of these sort of like common liminal spaces. One of the biggest enemies of the human mind is the human mind itself. If the brain feels the emptiness of a place, it'll jump to conclusions like crazy. Being alone results on not knowing what's next. Why is this place so lonely? Where did everyone go? The human brain answers this with the fear of the unknown, adding up to the unsettling factor of the place. Am I really alone? What's here in reality? Adding to the feeling of eeriness on its audience. Related to what I just mentioned before, liminal spaces tend to be so empty that it leads the brain to have a lot of conclusions. Have you never wondered to where a store is closed, for example? Why did this store close? Liminal spaces give the brain a lot of time to ask these questions. Sometimes you may feel calm at the beginning while watching one of these spaces, but when you take a closer look at it, is there something else here? Is this place really empty? Why is it empty? There must be something behind this emptiness. Why does almost, if not every liminal space feel so familiar? Familiarity is a key factor in liminal spaces. As mentioned earlier, liminal spaces give the audience that feeling of familiarity with the place. For example, a big mall or a children's playground. Feeling like you've already been there, when in almost all cases, you've never been in there. Why do you feel like you've been there when you've never been there? You've never seen that place in your life before. Liminal spaces often base themselves on commonly known places, for example, an empty store, those infinite hallways that we all hate. This takes advantage of the feeling of nostalgia on the viewer. Feelings of nostalgia regarding a place that in reality you've never seen or visited, when all you've done is explore places with a similar vibe, look, or feeling. Liminal spaces base themselves most of the times in spaces that we tend to see in our surroundings. Now, going back into the concept of liminal spaces, a transitional space, a space in between. The phrase "a space in between" not only refers to the physical elements of liminal spaces. Plus, it doesn't really apply when talking about the space itself. There's different types of liminal spaces, but today we're going to be talking about the physical liminal spaces. This most likely refers to the feelings that liminal spaces may cause on you, the audience. A battle between feelings. Take a look at this picture, for example. It looks normal, right? It looks comforting. But at the same time, it looks odd, giving you that sense of mistrust and discomfort. It's a feeling between something that looks and feels good and something that doesn't feel right. Something strange happening. Okay, but knowing all of this, what the hell is the impact of liminal spaces in our minds? Why do they mess up with our minds so bad? What's the psychology behind liminal spaces? While taking into consideration all of its characteristics, we can tell that liminal spaces have a big impact in the human mind. First, we know that the human mind is very easy to manipulate, especially if we're talking about perception of time and space, because they're very popular illusions that distort the space around us. Liminal spaces tend to distort the perception of reality. Being mostly transitional space, they can disconnect individuals from their usual reality, causing disorientation. Just like disorientation, liminal spaces also tend to distort time, contributing to the sense of freedom or imbalance in its audience. The unfamiliar but at the same time so familiar aspect of liminal spaces also contributes a lot on its impact on the human mind. The unfamiliar environment makes people more vulnerable to external influences, such as manipulation of the human mind, encouraging to deep thinking, leading to anxiety due to the uncertainty. The psychology behind liminal spaces is simple. People tend to seek out liminal spaces despite their unsettling nature because they offer a safe space for reflection, transformation, and engagement with uncertainty. Sometimes we don't know what's next, and we don't want to know what's next sometimes. And the fact that these liminal spaces give you the time to play with that uncertainty, it's relaxing. Being so nostalgic also gives us a sense of relief while we're watching this. The recent interest, especially in the architecture of liminal spaces, has been influenced by global events like the pandemic, and all of this hiding the interest in transitional spaces and the emotions they evoke. Liminal spaces serve as areas of potential, allowing individuals to process their experiences and explore new perspectives in meaningful ways. Liminal spaces evoke a complex mix of emotions, nostalgia, unease, and even fear due to their eerie familiarity and emptiness. Their absence of human presence changes our expectations, leading to a sense of disorientation and uncertainty. The human mind seeks patterns and meaning, often struggling to process these transitional spaces, making them both feel recognizable and unsettling at the same time. Despite their eerie nature, liminal spaces hold psychological significance, distorting time and perception. Their growing cultural relevance highlights their role in reflecting life's constant transitions and change. Liminal spaces have a big cultural impact, and we can clearly tell that, especially with the popularization of liminal spaces in the most recent times. Honestly, this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a really long time. It's a really cool topic for me. It's very interesting. Liminal spaces are so calling to people. Like seriously, if you've seen them randomly while scrolling somewhere, they are so calling. They are so interesting. And I'd also love to know what do you feel about liminal spaces in the comments. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day, great time. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you're seeing this, thank you so much. I love you for staying up to this time of the video. I hope you keep having a great rest of the day, rest of the night, rest of the afternoon, whenever you're seeing this again. Bye chat, stay safe.